This is CJ Baker, and this is an epic soundtrack to a mundane existence. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I read on Tier Maker for ideas for tier list video, but I decided that instead of music, I came across a tier list of golden era WWF wrestlers. So back when WWE was WWF. So I figured maybe it'll be fun to do this. So just to kind of let people know, obviously this channel is dedicated to music, but I'm also a big wrestling fan, which started as a kid in the 80s. So I was a big Hulk Hogan fan. I had like the Hulk Hogan dumbbells. I would like play wrestle. I accidentally broke my friend's nose. I was Hulk Hogan. He was Andre the Giant. I went to a few wrestling events. Like my uncle took me to some house shows. I was at a big event in 1986 called Hulkamania at Exhibition Stadium. The main event was Hulk Hogan versus Paul Orndorff. But then eventually I grew out of wrestling for a bit, got back into it during the Attitude Era, got out of it again for a bit. And then during the past few years, I've been watching wrestling again. So I fairly regularly watch WWE and AEW, and periodically I'll watch other promotions as well. So we'll get right into this list. So I believe it's said that there's about 74 wrestlers listed. And some of these don't actually appear to be wrestlers, they're other wrestling personalities. So there's some like announcers and managers. And but we'll begin with Brother Love. And I do remember Brother Love. I think he started off as being the first manager for The Undertaker. I did find the gimmick to be a bit irritating, so it was good that The Undertaker ended up with Paul Bearer. Plus, I don't really like Bruce Pritchard. Anytime I see him as a talking head in documentaries, he annoys me. Um, but yeah, the gimmick kind of annoys me as well. So sorry, brother love, you're gonna get in the bin. Then looks like we got Akeem, the African Dream. And he was also the one man gang. So I actually don't mind the one man gang. If I was ranking the one man gang, I'd probably put it as all right. But the actual Akeem gimmick, it was pretty terrible. It also hasn't aged well. So I'm gonna rate this on the gimmick and not the wrestler. So, like I said, one man gang would be all right. But Akeem, I hate that gimmick. It's lame. So, Akeem, you get in the bin. So, yeah, Andre the Giant, all time legend. I love Andre. The One of the greatest moments ever. And unfortunately, Andre the Giant was somewhat limited for what he could do at the time. But Hulk Hogan slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 was a big time, iconic moment. And I also love him in The Princess Bride. But there's very few wrestlers that are as iconic as Andre. So we'll put Andre as the best. Then we got Bad News Brown, who I think he had like a decent push. Apparently, he was really big, like in Stampede Wrestling in Calgary. But I think in the actual WWE, was kind of, well, back then, WWF was just kind of all right. And we got Bam Bam Bigelow. He was pretty athletic for a big man. He had a decent match against Lawrence Taylor, even though it was kind of a lame main event, but it was a good match. He was an athletic big guy. Um, so yeah, I'll put him as a lovely, lovely, lovely big boss man. Yeah, he's a pretty decent big guy as well. I mostly enjoyed his work. So we'll put him as lovely and lovely, lovely. Big John Studd. I mainly remember him as in the first WrestleMania, Andre the Giant slamming him. And I think I might have actually because I had a few wrestling figures which I regret not having anymore. But I think I might have had a Big John Stud one. But yeah, overall, I think he's just kind of all right. He was a decent giant, but yeah, just all right. Looks like that's Barry Jack Haynes. I recently watched Dark Side of Wrestling episode on him, and that was kind of disturbing. He kind of got himself into some shady stuff. But as far as the actual wrestler goes, I think his actual WWE one or WWF one, I was just kind of okay. Um, yeah, so we'll say all right. Okay, this one's gonna be difficult. I think this is the Blue Blazer, who was on art. And just to make this clear, on art would be either upper tier, lovely, lovely, or the best. So on art, rest in peace. I love you. But if I'm gonna rank the gimmick, this is where it gets a little bit difficult. The Blue Blazer gimmick was lame. It was a terrible gimmick. And it's criminal that this gimmick was given to a talented wrestler like Owen Hart. So the gimmick of the Blue Blazer has to get in the bin. It's a terrible gimmick. But just to emphasize that, it's the gimmick. Owen Hart himself would be either lovely, 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 or the best. So yeah, for the gimmick, get in the bin, Blue Blazer. Then we got Bobby the Brain Heenan. I don't remember him as a wrestler way before my time, but one of the greatest managers ever. Also entertaining on commentary. So yeah, Bobby the Brain Heenan, you're the best. Okay, Cowboy Bob Orton, decent wrestler. He did play a prominent role in the 80s. I remember him like in the first WrestleMania. Um, I'll say all right. Then we got Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard in WWE. They were the Brain Busters, also part of the Four Horsemen. Yeah, they're one of the best tag teams of all time. I think most of the best work was outside of the WWF, but I think they had some good matches in the WWF as well. But looking at just the WWF, I don't think I can quite put them at the best because that would be their like NWA work. Um, so we'll put them as lovely, lovely, lovely British Bulldogs. They were one of my favorite tag teams. They had the Bulldog, Matilda. Um, Try to think, do they go into the best or lovely, lovely, lovely? Um, we'll put them at the best. Okay, Brooklyn Brawler, entertaining jobber, but yeah, basically he's a jobber. So I don't know where to rank him. I'll say just about bearable. I think there's limits of how high you can place a jobber, but he did a good job of what his role was. Brutus the Barber Beefcake. To a certain extent, his push was because he was friends with Hulk Hogan. But I actually did get some enjoyment out of the Brutus the Barber character, even though he wasn't necessarily the best technically gifted in ring wrestler. But as far as overall entertainment value, he was all right. We got the Bushwhackers, which was kind of a goofy gimmick, which I kind of learned afterwards that prior to being the Bushwhackers, apparently they wrestled as they were apparently fairly important tag team in the development of like hardcore wrestling. But I'm ranking this basically as they work in WWF as the Bushwhackers. So for that, let's say it's just about bearable. As a kid, I didn't hate it, but looking back as an adult, it's a little bit cringe, but I can, like I said, it's bearable. Okay, I believe this is Butch Reed. Yeah, I mean, he was all right. So yeah, so we'll put him at all right. Corporal Kirshner. I mean, I think to a certain extent, he was kind of a Sergeant Slaughter knockoff because Sergeant Slaughter was in the WWF. But if my memory serves me right, someone can correct me if they know the full story. But the WWF wasn't happy that Sergeant Slaughter wanted to do G.I. Joe, so he left. So I think Corporal Kirshner was kind of the knockoff of Sergeant Slaughter. Um, and I don't think he had any real memorable moments, but we'll say just about bearable. Demolition, I love Demolition. Guess the only knock against them was they were kind of Road Royal knockoffs, but as a kid, I enjoyed them. But yeah, I will put lovely, 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 but they should be in the WWF Hall of Fame, which they're not. Don the Rock Morocco. Yeah, I did enjoy him, the original Rock. We'll put him as lovely, lovely, lovely. Looks like that's classy Freddie Blassie. Well, I know it was a wrestler, but that's way before my time. As a manager, I mean, he was decent. We're gonna put him as all right. Me and Gene Oakland, I did enjoy his role as an interviewer, and he knew how to play off the wrestlers. So he's probably the all-time best as far as backstage interviewing goes. So he did his role well. So we'll put the best there. George the Animal Steel. I mean, he was almost like comedic character by the time, like in the 80s. I think that's probably because he kind of passed his prime a bit. I think his peak period as a serious wrestler kind of predates my time. But as a kid, I enjoyed him and I enjoyed him ripping off the turnbuckles and he had the feud with Randy Savage and he had that crush on Elizabeth. So I did enjoy that. So I'll put lovely, lovely, lovely Greg the Hammer Valentine. Yeah, I remember I actually liked the tag team with British Beefcake, like the Dream Team. And I didn't mind his matches. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think if he'd be all right or lovely, lovely, lovely. I'm gonna go all right. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Yeah, like the 2x4. Ooh. I know like I messed that up how I said that. But yeah, um, I think I liked him enough. Is he all right or lovely, lovely, lovely? 'Cause I think looking back on it now, some of it's because at the time the whole USA thing was kind of appealing, but now that patriotic aspect that doesn't necessarily appeal to me the exact same way. And I think it was more the character work than the actual wrestler. Um, so I'm gonna put all right. Kayaku. Yeah, I liked him as a wrestler. And he has a reputation of being like apparently the toughest wrestler. Like you don't want to mess with Haku. He could kill you. Um, you know what? I'll put him as lovely, lovely, lovely. Harley Race. This is a tricky one because I think his WWF run was kind of all right. I know he was like the King Harley Race, but that wasn't his peak period. His peak period was with the NWA, where I think he's considered one of the greatest NWA champions of all time. And he had the feud with Ric Flair. So if you look at like the NWA outside of WWF, he's probably one of the best. He's a legend. But if you're looking at his actual WWF run, it's probably just all right. We'll split the difference and say lovely, lovely, lovely. Get a Hart Foundation. Yeah, great tag team. One of the all-time great tag teams. We'll go the best. They're one of the best tag teams. Hillbilly Jim. Um, I mean, he was okay. He was a bit of a goofy character. As a kid, I didn't mind. I remember he was in the cartoons. He was also on here. We'll go all right. Honky Tonk Man, bit gimmicky. I guess somewhat entertaining gimmick, but somewhat limited as a wrestler. I'll go all right. Okay, Howard Finkel. I mean, he was decent. He was a ring announcer. He was fine with what he did. All right. Hulk Hogan. Okay. I was a huge Hulkamaniac. But then later on in his career, when he became Hollywood Hulk Hogan with NWO, that was cool. And that was part of the reason why the NWO became huge. But I think Hulk Hogan's also done a lot to tarnish his legacy. Like when you learn a bit about his backstage politicking, I think there's times where he actually hurt the business. Like as much as he helped WCW, I think in the later days he also helped kill it, and he basically almost killed TNA. Um, and then he's a piece of shit of a human. So he did hurt his legacy. But just looking at the '80s golden era, and the fact that he's one of the biggest box office draws of all time, and the fact that I loved him as a kid, we're still gonna say he's the best. Um, the Iron Sheik. I mean, as a kid, I hated him, but I was supposed to hate him. And I remember the tag team he had with Nikolai Volkov. And then he was also the transitional champion. Like he had the championship that Hulk Hogan beat him for. So he was important in that way. And then later on, shortly before he died, I got a kick out of following him on Twitter. And quite often he would tweet, fuck the Hulk Hogan. So that always made me laugh. Um, but this is not based on his Twitter. But we'll put him as lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, Jake the Snake Roberts. Yeah, one of the best heroes of all time. And you can make an argument that he's one of the best wrestlers to ever win a world championship. They put him at best, so I'll put you lovely, lovely, lovely. Yeah, I'm gonna put him as best. His ring psychology was great, great heel. Love the snake. Revolutionized the DDT as a finishing move. Okay, Jesse the Body Ventura. I can't comment too much on his wrestling because I think I might have only seen like one or two matches, but he's one of the best commentators of all time. So, so as a commentator, I'll say he's the best. Um, Jimmy Hart, he's a good manager. He was entertaining. He had like the megaphone, the Hart family. I'll say lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay. Think, yeah, two Japanese women. The only Japanese woman I could think of in the '80s was the Jumping Bomb Angels. But I do remember, I think it was Survivor Series where there was like two teams of like four women. And I think the Jumping Bomb Angels were connected to that. And I think they had a couple of other matches. So from what I recall, they were a good team, kind of ahead of their time. And apparently their Japanese work was a whole lot better. But unfortunately, Vince didn't really want to push women's wrestling, so their actual stint was kind of brief, which is unfortunate. So just based on the fact that they had a limited run in the WWF and they weren't able to wrestle to the full potential, I'm going to put all right, which is a bit unfortunate because they probably had the talent to, if Vince McMahon wanted to push them and push women wrestling, the women's revolution could have happened years earlier. Then who's this? Yeah, looks like Junkyard Dog, JYD, who was somewhat limited as a wrestler, but as a kid, I loved him. Um, so we'll go lovely, lovely, lovely. Yeah, Ken Pantera. I hardly remember him. Um, so because of that, I'm gonna go just about bearable. I know he was known for his strength, and I believe he's an Olympian. Yeah, I think it looks like the Killer Bees. I only vaguely remember them wearing masks. I remember them mostly without the mask. Um, yeah, I liked them as enough as a kid. But all right, we got King Kong Bundy. I remember WrestleMania, he had at the time what was considered like the quickest match ever. And quite often he had those 5 count matches. And he was also the main event of WrestleMania 2, which is kind of a subpar main event. But overall, as a heel, he was kind of all right. Coco Beware. I mean, he had the parrot Frankie. He was kind of entertaining, but kind of low mid call, just slightly above jobber. But he was enjoyable, so we'll put all right. Captain Lou Albano. I mean, he was a good manager. He also appeared in a couple of Cyndi Lauper videos. Um, and I think he's an important part of like the rock and wrestling thing. But we'll put lovely, lovely, lovely Marty Jannetty. So yeah, there's expressing in wrestling with tag teams that the weak link of a tag team is the Marty Jannetty, which is not really a positive term. But I don't want to slag him too much because he was part of a good tag team. And his feud with Shawn Michaels when they split up was a decent feud. So yeah, I'll put just about bearable. Okay, we got the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. I mean, a pretty good heel. Um, at the time, I kind of hated him and the whole everybody has a price. Um, yeah, I'll say lovely, lovely, lovely. Even though his legacy's been tarnished a bit because there's been a little bit of a scandal of him like defrauding people with his son. So yeah, I think he's a bit of a shitty human, but based on his wrestling, lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, we got the lovely Elizabeth, who as a kid I had a big time crush. And it's hard to rank because on the surface you didn't do too much, but she actually did a lot. And she did a lot to enhance Randy Savage's character. Like when he was a face, she kind of helped garner sympathy for him. And then when he was a heel, you hated Randy Savage more because of the way that he treated Randy Savage. And a memorable moment I still remember as a kid was Randy Savage marrying Elizabeth. And from what I remember, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but this might be the only pro wrestler in Reading that had no shenanigans. And I also remember as a kid, this might be the first time I actually got emotional and cried watching a television program. And then also I remember the feud between like the Mega Powers explode with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. Elizabeth was a big part of that. So since she's the lovely Elizabeth, we'll go lovely, lovely, lovely Mr. Fuji. I know he started off as a wrestler, but that's way before my time. As a manager, he was decent. We'll say all right. Mr. Perfect, excellent wrestler, enjoyed his work. You'll go lovely, lovely, lovely. Nikolai Volkov. I did enjoy him as part of the tag team with Iron Sheik, and I liked like how he sang the Russian national anthem. So as a kid, you obviously booed him when he did that. Um, we'll say all right. Papa Shango, who later on during the Attitude Era was the Godfather. And in my teens, I enjoyed the Godfather gimmick, even though it obviously did not age well. But Papa Shango, I always find that gimmick kind of lame. So the gimmick, not the wrestler, the gimmick of Papa Shango gets in the bid. Okay, Paul, Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. And I mentioned how I went to see like the Hulkamania event, Hulk Hogan versus Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. And that was a fantastic feud that I still remember. So as a kid, I was a fan. I'll go upward tier. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, it looks like we got is that Hercules Hernandez and Paul Roma. Trying to remember the name of the tag team. Was it Power and Glory? I think so. I think the tag team was kind of forgettable. So yeah, because I don't really remember or say just about Bearable. Macho Man Randy Savage. Ooh, yeah, Macho Man Randy Savage. I know that's probably a really bad Randy Savage impersonation. Really bad Randy Savage impersonation. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I love Randy Savage. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I already talked about the storyline with Elizabeth and the connection there and the mega powers explored. And there was also his WrestleMania 3 match with Ricky Steamboat, which was a fantastic match. And also, it's not really related to my ranking, but before his death in the 2000s, he put out a rap album, which was really bad, but so bad it was good. And it included a diss track where he called out Hulk Hogan. So yeah, I got a kick out of that. Okay, we got Ravishing Rick Rude. Yeah, he was an entertaining wrestler. I remember like his feud with the Ultimate Warrior. And he's another really good wrestler if you make a list of wrestlers that never won the world championship. I'll put him as lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, we got Red Rooster. I think that's Red Rooster. I think he has the red streak in his hair, but he's also Terry Taylor. I think Terry Taylor as a wrestler was kind of a mid-carder, but the actual Red Rooster gimmick was a really lame, stupid gimmick. So for the gimmick, so not for Terry Taylor, just for the Red Rooster gimmick, we're gonna get in the bin. Okay, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Yeah, fantastic wrestler. Unfortunately, I don't think he ever fully got the push that he deserved. And apparently he was punished because he wanted to take some time off to because he basically his wife gave birth and he wanted to spend time with his newborn child. So he's kind of punished for that. And then when he came back to the WWF, he had a stupid gimmick as the dragon. So that hurt him a little bit. He also had a number one with the NWA and some classic matches with Ric Flair. But just as his WWF run, it was a really good run and he was really over. But I think he was held back a bit and the dragon gimmick was kind of stupid. Um, so he doesn't quite make the best. He would be lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, I believe this is Rockin' Robin. And she has a championship belt on. I know she had a reign as women's champion at a time where individuals may not even have known who the women's champion was because women wrestling wasn't really getting pushed then. She's also the sister of Jake the Snake Roberts. It's hard to know where to rank her because women wrestling wasn't pushed, and I don't even know if I remember a Rock and Robin match, but I don't want to slag her too hard because she was a victim of the times. So we'll just put her as all right. Uh, yeah, Roddy Piper, love Roddy Piper, one of the greatest heels of all time, one of the greatest on the mic, very entertained. Also, I'm talking about greatest wrestlers that never become world champion. And it's partly because he was his own worst enemy, because he very rarely would agree to lose cleanly. So it's hard to give someone a championship if they wouldn't be willing to lose the title. Um, but yeah, fantastic heel. And he was really like in the during that rock and wrestling period and with the first WrestleMania. He was a very important part of that. So yeah, we'll put him as the best. Yeah, so it looks like we got Sherry Montel, Scary Sherry, who was an above average woman wrestler who unfortunately wrestled at a time that women weren't getting pushed. But she was also a fantastic manager, and because of her wrestling experience, she got more involved than most women. Like she was definitely far more than a valet, and she would take pop bumps and get physical. Um, so yeah, we'll put her as lovely, lovely, lovely. So Slick, I think Reverend Slick. Um, I remember that he was all right. Don't have a strong opinion either way. Okay, this is like Tito Santana and Rick Martel. I think that's Strike Force. I remember they had that song Girls and Cars, which I had no idea exactly what it had to do with them as a tag team. Um, they both were decent enough wrestlers. We'll say all right. Looks like this is Nikolai Volkov and is it Boris Zukov? Zubov? Someone can correct me. I'm probably butchering the name. I think they're like the Bolsheviks. I do prefer Nikolai Volkov with the Iron Sheik, so don't have much of an opinion with them as a tag team. We'll put them as just about bearable. The Rockers, they were a decent tag team, but they're also kind of a Rock and Roll Express ripoff, which I didn't necessarily realize at the time. It's when I learned a bit more about how to wrestle and like I got into reading wrestling magazines and I got to see some footage. Like my uncle was a wrestling fan, had some footage of like NWA Mid South. And that's when I realized they were kind of like a rip-off. But they were an all right team. So we'll put them as all right. Then we got the Rougeau brothers. Don't really have a strong opinion. They were all right. Then we got, I think they were called the Glamour Girls. I think that's Atlanta Kai. Is it Judy Morton? I only vaguely remember them. I think they might have been involved in a Survivor Series match. Unfortunately, once again, they were at a time where women didn't get pushed. I also have some recollection of Liana Kai. Was the first WrestleMania where she wrestled against Wendy Richter? I think so. Um, so yeah, she was wrestling at a time where women didn't get the respect, which is unfortunate. Um, but we'll put all right. Don't want to slag him too much. Then we got Tom Zink. I think in WCW, he's like the Z-Man or something. Um, I don't know. The gimmick didn't do much for me. I'll put just about bearable. Okay, Ultimate Warrior. This is a tough one. As a kid, I loved them. Um, and I did enjoy the WrestleMania 6 match between him and Hogan. And Randy Savage also got a good match out of him because as a technical wrestler, he wasn't all that good. But the ring entrance was really enjoyable. The whole things that spoils his legacy, and some of it's outside the ring, so I don't want to draw on it too much. For the fact that he was a piece of shit human will separate the human from the wrestler. But there are some things as a wrestler that took place after the golden age. So I don't know if I'm going to consider it or not. Like his wrestling return, I think around like 96 or so was kind of subpar. Um, and when he went to WCW, his match with Hulk Hogan was one of the worst ever. Um, so yeah, we'll put him as lovely, lovely, lovely. Uncle Elmo. I remember a Redding that ended up in chaos because Reddings always do on Saturday Night Main Event. As a wrestler, he looked like he was very limited and not very good. Um, yeah, I was say get in the bin. Who's this? I think that's Velvet McIntyre, who once again was around at a time where women won't get in push. It's hard to know where to rank her. We'll put just about bearable. But like I said, that's mainly because I don't have enough familiarity. And I don't want to slag any of the women wrestlers too much because some of it wasn't really their fault. Even women that did have talent were being held back. And I already kind of mentioned women wrestling was nowhere near what took place right now. And without getting too off topic, I do want to mention that I just watched the WWE PLE, like the evolution, like the second evolution that just took place. And despite the lackadaisical build, the event over delivered. Like it was a very entertaining event. So women wrestling has come a long way. Okay, so we got Virgil. I mean, as a wrestler, he was somewhat limited. He was mostly Ted DiBiase's men's servant, which I think is kind of hasn't particularly aged well. But I do remember kind of cheering him when he kind of separated from Ted DiBiase and they feuded. Um, but overall, I don't know. I'm gonna say just about bearable because overall the character was not great. He's this. I think that's the powers of pain. I think that's is it Warlord and Barbarian. Um, I always thought of this as kind of like a World Royal slash Legion of Doom ripoff, but I guess they were all right. I think that's Warlord separate. I don't know why they would have them both as the tag team and separate. At least I think that's Warlord. If it's not, someone can correct me. But I'll say all right. Okay, Wendy Richter. Yeah, so she was really old during the rock and wrestling period. She was almost as old as Hulk Hogan, and that was partly because of the involvement with Cyndi Lauper. But yeah, unfortunately, the story goes that apparently she wanted to get paid more. The WWF didn't want to, but she was woman champion. So this was one of the first pro wrestling screw jobs, apparently. Um, Spider Lady, I think it was Spider Lady, might have Spider Woman, but I think it was Spider Lady, who was basically the fabulous Moolah, had a quick roll up victory, which apparently Wendy Richter did not know was going to happen. Um, so yeah, I do feel bad for Wendy Richter, and I do think she needs some props for the role she did play in women wrestling. Um, so yeah, we'll put her as lovely, lovely, lovely. I think this is Paul Roma and Jim Powers, which is the second tag team with Paul Roma. I don't know why we have two Paul Roma tag teams. Um, but I probably feel the same as I did Power and Glory. So I'll probably put just about bearable. So that's the list there. So what do you think of this tier list? Anyone that I rank too high? Anyone that I rank too low? Who's your favorite wrestler of the golden era? If you want me to keep making content like this, please like and subscribe. If this does get enough engagement, maybe I'll consider doing a separate YouTube channel for wrestling content because I am a big wrestling fan, but I don't want to necessarily kind of muddle things by having too much wrestling content with music content. But if this is something you're interested in, let me know. If it gets enough engagement, I might consider doing that. So thanks for watching. And also, I'm going to do the shameless plug because I always do. So even though this had nothing to do with music, I have my website, ongoinghistoryofprotestsongs.com. So feel free to check that out. So once again, thanks for watching and please stay safe.